What's up, boys? Today I'm going to be showing you all my complete repertoire with the white pieces for 2024, starting with knight f3, the ready. Now, this move may look a little passive, right? Beginners are told to push central pawns at the start, not knights, but we're going to be controlling the center from the sides. So this knight controls these two squares, so e5 is never possible, and we're going to be adding in c4 most of the time, controlling here and adding a bishop on this long diagonal. This bishop is going to be our best piece. It's going to be creating a lot of tactics against this rook, and you can win games pretty fast like this. So it's fairly similar to Catalans and Englishes, if you know those openings, but one of the interesting things of putting a knight out first is you get to play traditionally black openings as the white pieces with an extra move. So if we look at this position, we're going to talk about later. This is a reverse Benoni. So all of the plans of a Benoni, you still learn them and you can play them as both colors, right? That's the good thing. You're learning and you can play the Benoni as black, you can play the Benoni as white, and you learn the same plans and the same plans apply, right? There's also this is the reverse Grunfeld, another very dangerous opening, which wins about 60% of the time. Very fun opening. And you always, by not putting pawns in the center at the start, you always have the option of, transposing. Say you really want to play a Catalan, you can do this, but you don't have to, right? You can play b3. You can keep these center pawns, or you can, gambit this pawn. That's really good too, because whenever they take like this, they're opening up the bishop, and it's really hard for them to hold on to this pawn. That's the whole point of the opening, is when they take the pawn that you're offering. If you look here, we have two central pawns, they have one. So if we win this pawn back, which we probably will, we will be slightly better. Alright, so most of this video is going to be focused on d5, although we're going to talk about the other moves as well. d5 is the most principal move, by far the most common, and in this position, we play c4. This is a gambit, and if you know anything about the Queen's Gambit accepted, right? It's not always a good idea to take this. It looks like a free pawn, but it's really hard to hold on to, which we're going to discuss. There are 3 or 4 real options for black. They can either take the pawn, which is okay. They can push, which enters sort of a reverse Benoni, and they can try and protect it like this. Let's talk about some sidelines. A lot of people are going to try and protect the pawn with a knight. But if you notice, we can take this pawn and we take the whole center, and it's a pretty miserable position as the black pieces. If you've lost the entire center, you've got 2 connected central pawns versus 1, and you've got natural development and positionally crushing, right? Same thing with bishop out. If they try and play a reverse London, we just take, attack the queen, and take the whole center. let's start with the most common moves. It's to take this pawn. It looks like a free pawn, why not take it, right? We play e3, threatening to recapture. If they play b5, this is a very common mistake. It's the most common move, actually. We play a4, c6, take it, and play knight c3. Attacking this pawn, and if you notice, they can't play a6 because this pawn is pinned, so we can take this. The only other way to protect it is queen out or bishop out, and both of them lose. Queen out loses because of b3. Oh, sorry. I was wondering why the evaluation dipped. We play b3, and if they take this, we can take the check, or we can take this. And if they try and protect, it's even worse because the knight d4. I don't even know what the move is. If they try and take, we just take, and we're just winning material. This is a miserable position, right? Yeah, because of this. Yeah, and whenever the bishop arrives here, we automatically play knight e5, attack it, with the idea of playing queen f3, which, if you notice, this is a fork of checkmate and a rook. So they have to defend, and we play this anyway. The only move to not lose this rook is to block it, and we win a piece. So virtually everything involving b5, if you remember ideas like knight e5, queen f3, remember always take this pawn, and you always have b3 as well if you want. These pawns just become so weak, and our pawns here, they're back, right? They're not in danger. We always have these two pawns, which when all of this clears, we're going to play d4, you know, just spread out and take the whole center. Yeah, so I think the best move is just lose the pawn and play a position like this, which it's not a fun time really. So we're going to be playing moves like a3, b4, put a bishop out on this long diagonal, queen up, rook in. We got all easy moves that black can't really challenge, right? Long term, we're probably going to be looking at expanding with e4, just take the whole center, because what is he going to do, right? Black is going to maybe try and fight back with c5, but it's pretty tough to play as black, honestly. Alright, so instead of taking, they may look to push. And here we enter a reverse Benoni structure. The Benoni is a great opening, but having the extra move as white just makes it a lot clearer, and all the same plans still apply. You're going to get, more often than not, you're going to fianchetto, get a position like this, maybe look to expand or break it open like this. e3 is your main break. Yeah, and pressure this pawn, because he can't easily play e5. So if he tries to support it, right, we can always push the knight away. I think the engine move in certain positions is to play f6, e5, but that just looks so inhuman, right, to play. Yeah, so in this position, people might play c5. c5 is the main sort of way to fight this opening. And here I like to play e3, takes, always take with the f pawn, unless your king is in danger along this diagonal. We want pawns in the center. And if they take this, we play d4 and we're happy, right? We sacrificed a pawn, but we have positional compensation. This is barely a pawn. We might be able to win it back. And if we don't, that's perfectly fine too. Yeah, so I'll just show you what it looks like. We almost always put a bishop here, castle, and put a bishop here. And no matter what they're doing, we always look to try and smash it open. It's important to remember that we have a 3-on-1 in the center, right? So in endgames, we can create a passed pawn like this, and that passed pawn can win the game. So they have to be careful with that. And yeah, let's look. e4 is the best move. If they play knight out, we attack, and then we can do some rerouting. We can, this rook can be an attacker in some positions. We got a bishop staring at at h7. I want to reroute the knight in. You can also try and win this, or just crack things open. Prepare it first, crack it all open. Now they don't have to play into this, obviously, so we look at knight f6. Most of the time we're going to have bishops on both long diagonals, so we're going to have two good bishops, and we're going to fight with, breaks like this. So the main move is knight c6, but again, we just push it. In some positions, you want to check and then play b5. There's a move. If they just try and attack this, we can still win this pawn. Takes is a fork, right? So they can't often win this pawn, but in some positions you have to defend it, obviously. Yeah, so if you can't remember these moves, this is a rock solid setup, and you're going to look for an e3 break and just expand, take the whole center. Yeah, let's look at these kind of Queen's Gambit or Slav structures. So in these positions, I like to play g3, bishop g2. They might think, oh, look, he's just giving me a pawn, I can just push. Yeah. But it's not so simple to hold on to these pawns in these structures. So quite often I like to actually play knight a3 and get a rook here. It's a little goofy, but let me show it. So if they play bishop here, I usually go knight a3. And if they take this, I crack open with d3. Takes, and we've sacrificed a pawn again. I think it's fine. We got pressure down this file as compensation. They don't have to take, of course. Quite often they're just going to give you this pawn back. You can also play queen c2 or queen a4 in some positions, not with this. So if they take here, you can just win it back immediately. Or you can even play a4. Again, if they ever play b4, they're in for some trouble. So you hit him with a4, takes, and knight e5 is a destruction. They can hold on to it for a bit, but again, we can just keep cracking things open. d3 might be more accurate. I don't even know what. There's just too much pressure. And so all of these lines where the bishop comes here aren't really so easy to get. Right? Like it's not easy to hold on to this pawn in the Neo-Catalan compared with the standard Catalan, because we have an extra move. We haven't played d4. And yeah, they're just giving the pawn back. Same thing with g3. I think this might be the strongest like way to fight the ready. But again, you have the same always transpose, but with bishop f5, we play takes, and queen b3. It's a lot of pressure. This is actually what I play against the London. Again, so we're using our black openings as white. You can take that if you want, or you can just keep developing. What else is there? Let's talk about the Dutch. The Dutch is it might be my favorite opening, but I violate the Dutch. with the ready, the Dutch is a destruction. And the way I do this is e4. Now, if you've studied the Dutch, you should be aware of these e4 gambits, like the Staunton gambit is really dangerous if you're a Dutch player. And this is its lesser known brother, right? It is called the Lecetian Gambit. It's got a really long name on chess.com. But basically, the idea is almost everyone's going to take it because they're taking a pawn, they're attacking a knight. What is this bozo doing? Well, we play knight g5, knight defends. Most people are going to play this. And you got to remember d3. So this move doesn't look like it does anything, right? Can't they just take, and they're up a pawn? But if you check the evaluation, it's not great, and it's about to get a lot worse if they don't play absolutely perfectly. So every move that looks logical loses, pretty much, except for one. So if they play h6, obviously this is mate in one. Any of these moves loses to the tactic bishop takes h7. Again, it may not make sense unless you know the line, but the idea is we're threatening queen check, and we can win this knight, or we can fork like this, whatever. So no matter what they do, always remember to sack this bishop and win back material, and this king is so weak because of this Dutch move, which opened up the king on this diagonal. The only real move that doesn't immediately lose is g6. Still, we can take this if we want, but I like h4 and h5. And this is just such a nightmare. So if they take, we sack the rook, queen's coming in, that's mate. Obviously if they take, we can still sack the rook. Again, it's mate. Yeah, you just need to remember, do this, take, and we're threading this. They can also defend with the pawn, but again, we do the same plan. Takes, takes. This transposes back. There are no real moves other than g6 and still h4, right? What else is there? We need to talk about c5, sorry. So a lot of Sicilian players are going to play this because it's the Sicilian invitation, right? They're going to play this and hope you play e4. But we're playing the ready. We don't have to play by their rules. We don't have to put pawns in the center if we don't want to. And we don't want to let them play a Sicilian because the Sicilian is fucking scary. Yeah, so in this position, we just play g3. We allow them to play d5. And for the bishop out, if necessary, we can just play a King's Indian attack. That's always an option. But what I like here is to enter the reversed Grunfeld. The Grunfeld is maybe one of the scariest openings you can face as a d4 player, and we're playing it with a whole extra move. We've already moved our bishop onto this diagonal. So the engine may say it's equal, but it's a nightmare. The main line, if you know Grunfeld's theory, it's takes, takes, e5, takes, takes, c4. This move is really important. So the whole idea of the Grunfeld is this pawn is pinned. It can't take or push because this comes with check and wins the rook. So this pawn can't move. The king is stuck in the center. We're going to castle earlier, and we're going to load up pressure on this pawn and this pawn as well. So the moves we're going to be playing, in whatever order, knight c3, queen a4. If there's a knight here, we always pin it, and you're always counting defenders. So quite often you're just going to win this pawn, right? Let's play out a bit of it. So bishop e6 seems logical. Defend the pawn. We can play knight c3, knight f6. Always pin this, and again, a lot of people are just going to play h6, right? But if you count, we just won a very important central pawn. Now, if you notice here, we have a 2-on-1 majority, which, if you know anything about endgames, this is enough to win your game. So you're going to try and trade queens, trade rooks if you can, castle. You can bully the king, you know. Obviously, not everyone's just going to blunder a pawn, but it happens more often than you think. This also blunders the same pawn. it's a tough position. So they might try and pin the knight, but again, you can just take. If they take, they lose a bishop, which will happen. So they're forced to take your knight. And then after takes, you got to remember c4. Exploiting this pin so they can't push forward or take. So this rook in the corner. And again, they try and defend with a knight. Check. And you're going to win a pawn somehow. Let's go back. Oh, and if they refuse to enter your like Grunfeld style position, they just keep developing normally, we castle, and then we hit him with c4. This looks extremely confusing. Everything sees each other, but it's all good, and at worst, it's equal. This is a gambit, but I think it's too easy to win back with like 95 queen a4 type stuff. If they take like this, I always instinctively take towards the center. And then if they take with the e pawn, you've got this. You got this isolated pawn that you're going to play against the whole game, and it's going to be a nightmare defending that. And if they take with a knight, same thing. You got a nasty bishop. This bishop can't move because you're going to take here. Yeah, like if this moves, then this knight is pinned. It's really a lot of things can go wrong for black here. The move I least like playing against is g6 if they play like a dragon Sicilian. And they stop you from playing d4. So when you're playing someone who plays such an aggressive opening, the dragon is really dangerous. One thing I like to do is just play c4. You force them out of their comfort zone. They're playing a positional, symmetrical English where you're going to be slightly better, but it's going to be, it's going to be a game, right? If they ever block this bishop, you can always play d4, enter the same sort of structure like this, where it's almost like a Maroczy bind, but you got a fianchetto as well. What else is there? And then the reason I don't like playing against this is because of e6, bishop e7, which is really rare, but it is, a move. And then you just have an equal game where you're always looking for d4. You don't want to keep things symmetrical. And then, yeah, they just break open. It's a game, What else is there? Let's talk about if they just mirror you. What I like to do is play d4. Most people who play like this are going to play a King's Indian, almost everyone. Castles, c4, d6, knight out. Now there's a bunch of moves. We're playing it's the fianchetto against the King's Indian. So basically a Catalan. The reason I like this structure after we castle, let's just show. So after we castle, every King's Indian player all they're thinking about is playing e5, f5, and just attacking you. But it's really hard to attack a fianchetto structure, I found. In these systems, like the traditional plans, they just don't work. So you have to come up with, playing the queen side, and it's a lot of my openings are designed to like get the sort of person who plays the openings uncomfortable. And I think this makes King's Indian players a little uncomfortable. So e5, that's the normal move. Then you always play e4. After takes, again we have this sort of Maroczy bind structure with a couple pawns in the center, a lot of activity. We can get another fianchetto. There are tactics that you got to be careful of, because they have their own nasty bishop, but I think this is just a decently better position for white. After e4, they might try c6, stopping this. Here I just get my other bishop fianchettoed, and again, you're always okay with this trade as long as there's no tactics with this bishop. Queen out, rook's in. It's not too bad. Whenever the knight comes here, which will happen, you can push. I think pushing might be best. Point is, if knight comes here, you just take it, and knight comes here. Got to be a little scared of sometimes this is bad, but in this case it's good, I guess. Why is it? Oh, because we attacked the knight. Okay. We trapped the knight. What else is there? c5 is another way to play against this system. Again, we just castle. If they take, we're pretty happy. Like, play e4. You got a big center. We got easy development, right? I think that might be everything. That's my entire repertoire for 2024. Thanks for watching. Good luck.